our first speaker, Autumn M.
Hi everyone, my name's Autumn, I'm an addict. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Grateful to be here tonight, and thank you to this group for asking me to come share my experience, strength, and hope. My clean date is 10/12/14, and that date is the most important day of my life, because without it, I don't know where I'd be. I want to start by just reading a little bit from our literature. I love the Living Clean book. This is off of page 175, A New Way of Life. Our literature tells us that we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of society. But it also cautions that social acceptability does not equal recovery. Both statements are true, but they are not mutually exclusive. We each measure being a productive member of society in our own way. Our ideas of success are as individual as we are. We start at different places, and our destinations are just as varied. We know how to do some things very well and others not at all. We may enter recovery with a career still in place, or it may be that getting a steady place to live is a big step. We have this in common. We want to be free. We want to feel accepted and respected without pretending to be anything other than who we are. No matter what our accomplishments, the principles by which we live will sustain or destroy us. I just asked John to grab me that book, and that's what I flipped open to, and I feel like, I just really relate to that passage. When I got clean, I was 22. I had tried to get clean for about a year, almost a year, prior to my final clean date. And, I didn't think that I could do it. I didn't think that I could stay clean. That year that I tried to get clean, I was going to meetings, I was using in between them. I thought that everybody had to have been doing something. It just was wild to me, thinking about not using any substance. And so, I would drink and I would smoke and I would think this is probably okay. They're probably doing it too. And I just wasn't ready yet. Just to kind of back up a little bit, I do want to talk about my circumstances leading up to when I got clean. So, I was raised here in Portland by my dad and my stepmom. I was taken away from my mother because she married my abuser. I was sexually abused and physically and mentally abused by her husband for 6 years of my childhood, and it was really damaging. I think that to sum it up, what that did to me was it turned every cell of my being into fear. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't have faith in people to do the right thing. My mom chose to stay with my abuser when I told about the abuse, so I felt betrayed by the one person I thought I was never supposed to be betrayed by. So it just further instilled that I couldn't trust people. And, that really affected me as I grew up. I acted out. I started drinking at a young age. I thought I just wanted to be cool and accepted and find somewhere that I fit in. But no place that I ever really was did I ever feel that way. I was an athlete. I played basketball from second grade all the way through high school. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I wanted to go to college and play basketball, and I didn't even feel like I fit in there. I never felt good enough. I couldn't jump high enough. I couldn't run fast enough. I couldn't make enough points. I couldn't get enough rebounds. In school, I wasn't the smartest kid. I had to try really, really hard at things that just seemed to be simple to other people. And of course, when I grew up, I realized that your home environment has a lot to do with your success in school. And then it just, fueled my resentment at my parents. But, the house I grew up in, I had 3 brothers, and they were just, 2 of them were always in trouble. And so they got most of the attention, and I just kind of, I hid it really well that I was struggling. I hid it well that, school was hard and that I didn't fit in anywhere. And I never really opened up to my parents about those things. In my mind, they just didn't have time to deal with it. So, I say all that to say that, like, my trauma and my life experience leading up to, my drug addiction, and thereafter, right? Like, all the things I do in recovery are to try to heal that wounded little girl that was betrayed and abandoned and left out and overlooked, and all those core beliefs that I couldn't trust people and that I wasn't good enough. And, recovery has been a really beautiful experience and also really painful, because looking at those wounds and that pain is very uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it most of the time. But the steps, working the steps has helped. Working with a sponsor has helped. The steps usually find me right where I'm at, and I've had the experience multiple times now where I realize that I might be in denial about something, right? Like, I'll be doing the step work and I'll think like, I think I might be in denial around my dad's, dysfunction and like how my dad hurt me or whatever. Because I always kind of put my dad on a pedestal, like he did no wrong, he loved me, he supported me, he made sure I had a roof over my head and food in my belly. But my dad like totally neglected me and, has done a bunch of other shit, but not really worth getting into. But when I realize I'm in denial, then the work can start, and then it all starts unraveling, and then I can get to my part, and I can get to like why I think about things the way that I do, and I can get a shift in my perspective. So I'll read this next little part. Getting out of our own way. So much of our experience is a result of our perception. We may feel very grounded even though the outside circumstances of our lives are in flux. There are also times when everything looks fine, but we feel like we're coming undone. We can come through letdowns and redirections and see that we are still succeeding and progressing in our lives. Or we can feel like a failure even when everything is actually going along just fine. Perhaps what we perceive as good or bad is simply an event. We make it good or bad by our attitude toward it and our response to it. We can turn a simple setback into a drama that lasts forever and is everyone else's fault. We get through difficulty much more quickly if we simply accept it and keep moving. Letting go gets easier when we learn not to hold on to it so tightly. So I'll kind of like read that and then just wrap up like the beginning part of my life, right? Like all of that really affected my perception on reality. And since I've been in recovery, I've been working the steps and following this program so that I could get a new perspective on my life and find a new way to live. Like, I don't want to live consumed in fear all the time. I don't want to walk around not trusting people, not trusting women, not trusting men, just like being miserable in a self-made prison. So, I get clean at 22. They tell me what to do. They say, go to meetings, don't use in between them, which was like mind-blowing to me. I was like, okay, I think these people are serious. They're not using. Okay, don't use in between meetings. I was like super sick for my first week, so like I built a habit in the first couple weeks where like I was just with people in recovery at all times. God gave me the opportunity to have like a completely clean slate when I got here. I didn't have a job, I didn't have a boyfriend, I hadn't had kids yet. I had never been to jail, never been arrested. I lost my phone plan, so I had to get a new phone and a new phone plan. So like I didn't have any of my contacts or connections to that other world, which was great, like a clean slate. And pretty quickly I moved into a recovery house. I filled my phone number up with numbers from phone lists. I called 3 people a day. I got like 5 service commitments because I didn't know how to say no. And it was really good for me. It was what I needed. And I started working the steps with a sponsor. I got through the 3rd step with her, and I realized that I wanted something different. I didn't fully trust in that relationship, and so I went a different way, and I worked my 12 steps with a different sponsor, and that was a really powerful experience. That woman showed me unconditional love. I shared my heart and soul with her, everything that I had ever done wrong, any wrongs that were done unto me, all my resentments, all my fear, my assets, my liabilities, discovering what those were, acting out on character defects and just blowing her up like, dude, I'm an asshole. I don't know what to do. And then, I realized that woman, she gave me hope in having relationships with women again, and relationships that could feed me and not take from me, and she told me to go get a women's meeting as a home group and get a service position there. And I don't know, there's some people in here that know me from when I got clean, but I was pretty, how do people say it? Standoffish, I think is the nice way to say it. And I didn't really want to be in relationship with women. I thought they also didn't like me, which was probably sometimes true because, like I said, I was standoffish. And so when I went to that meeting and I got a service position there, I became the secretary. I went to the business meeting. The secretary was like, I'm stepping down. And I was like, my sponsor told me I should get a service position. They were like, you want a secretary? And I had no idea what kind of commitment that would be. But I had to show up to that meeting every Tuesday and open this church for a group of women that I didn't like and that I'm pretty sure they didn't like me. And I did it every single week, and soon enough, well, it took about 3 years, but I built relationships with those women. I fought with those women, I made up with those women, but I stayed committed. And, in my first 3 years, I went through some big stuff, right? Like all that trauma that I had used over for years, I started processing with my sponsor, with a therapist, and all these different ways, and it was really painful. I really wanted to get loaded, and sometimes I just couldn't see straight. And I remember at least a handful of times, it was a day where I couldn't see straight, and I didn't want to go to the meeting, but somehow I made it there. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, I don't even know how I got here. But that's what we say when we're talking about building a foundation. A foundation to me means building habits in recovery that are going to persist when life shows up, right? I don't like to just walk around my life and think oh, shit's hitting the fan, now I gotta go to a meeting. I stay going to meetings so that when shit hits the fan, people know who I am, they know what's going on with me, they know what I care about, and they can support me, So that was a really important part of my early recovery experience was building relationships with women, and it got me involved with a women's retreat that I've been a part of for most of my recovery. And there's a sort of magic that happens when you get a bunch of women together in the woods with no cell phones. I'll tell you, the first year we went, I was scared shitless. I almost didn't go. I think me and my roommate were both anxious about going maybe, and we fought over a t-shirt, and Shannon was in the middle of us, and she was like, are you guys fucking serious? But we went, right? We had a great time. It changed my life. It changed my life. I never had experienced peace amongst all women before. And so I started being of service to that retreat. I started giving back, and I started, trying to create that atmosphere for other women like me to go and have a similar experience. Service has been a really big part of my recovery. I don't do anything perfectly here. I don't use, and I do a lot of service though. I don't want to get to present day yet, but I will. service, step work, sponsorship. Yeah, fuck it, I'll get there. So recently, let me back up, sorry. So early recovery, I work through the trauma, I get involved with women, I build relationships with women, and then, I'm in a relationship with a partner. And that presents a whole other slew of issues. Like, I'm 23 years old and I have no idea who the fuck I am or what I want in my life. I know, there's a few things, right? I have this vision of marriage and kids, and I want a career, and I don't really know how to get there. But I get with a man, and we're doing the thing, right? We're crossing the milepost, and we move in together, and that's challenging, right? I've never lived with a man before. I don't know how to do this. And I'm discovering what kind of woman I want to be and what kind of relationship I want to be. And so my relationship has experienced growing pains. And then we have a kid together, and it's, great. It's great, but kids are a lot of fucking work. And my whole identity changed, when I had my son. I didn't know who I was anymore. Nothing made sense. My whole physical body changed. All my priorities changed. I was dead set on becoming an attorney, and I was like, I don't want to miss my kid's life, right? I worked at a law firm. I saw the attorney. She worked all the time, and she was miserable, and her marriage was suffering, and her kid never saw her, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want that. I want to be there for my son. And so I was like, okay, I'll go back to school, get a different degree, and I'll be a teacher, right? And so that's the track I'm on now. My son is 3 now. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But the relationship, it was still hard. It was hard to figure out who I was in the relationship again. And, we had to work through that, and it was really challenging. I relied on my women, on my support, on my meetings, my higher power, and I just had to follow my gut through the whole thing, even though it was really uncomfortable. We ended up working things out, and we had another baby, as it goes. And shit's really fucking hard. I don't know if I'm not supposed to cuss up here, but I'm a cusser, so it's really hard. And I thought that the identity crisis would just change, just happen when you had the first kid, but it's happening all over again. Where in the last year, I've really struggled with coming into this new version of myself. And I think in part it's because of where I came from, what I saw growing up, what I thought was normal, and then doing the step work and realizing that how I grew up was not normal. It was really dysfunctional, and I don't want that, right? So I'm trying to use the spiritual principles. I'm trying to use the tools that I have found here in recovery and apply them in my life as a mother, as a partner, as an employee, and it just, it's super overwhelming. And so recovery has always been a priority for me because, like I said, I have to have the foundation so that when life happens, when shit hits the fan, it's there. I'm connected, I'm plugged in. And I'm so grateful that I've never stopped doing that because shit has hit the fan and I need recovery. I need NA more than anything else in my life. So I was looking at my life, what could I do? What could I do to just survive this period, right? Because I have these goals. I want to be in school. I want my job. It's a great job. I get the benefits. I love recovery. I love all my service positions. And I didn't want to give any of it up, but I was suffering. And I finally got to the point where I was willing to let something go, and it had to be service in some ways. And so I'm one position's ending and one I step down from, and then I'll just have one, and well, two technically. I'm not going to lie to you today. I'm the treasurer of my home group, and that's just so nominal to me that I'm going to keep it. But I have two technically. And what I'm learning is that, like, I don't have to do anything perfectly, right? Like, I don't have to be a perfect recovering addict. I don't have to be a perfect mom. Like, perfect is not attainable for me ever, but I think I'm kind of just now realizing that. Because I just can't. I cannot be 100% in all areas of my life. But I can try to minimize the suffering that I'm experiencing on my journey, right? Like, I don't have to be overextending myself, trying to be the picture, right? Like, it's really ego-based. Like, my first sponsor always said, like, pride and ego, Autumn, pride and ego. Every time I had a problem with her that I would take to her, Autumn, pride and ego. It's like, what the fuck? She's always talking about my pride and ego. But I get it. Like, social acceptability does not equal recovery. It doesn't matter if you think my life looks good if I'm miserable and suffering on the inside. It doesn't matter what car I drive, what house I have, how many kids I have, what clothes they're wearing. None of that matters. What matters is how I feel on the inside and how thanks Roger, and how I am to, like, the people near me, right? And when I'm crazy, when I'm like trying to do the most, I'm not being good to my kids, I'm not being good to my partner, I'm not being good to myself. You know, I have to have some grace for myself and some patience with myself. And like, it's just so interesting. I always discover that I do the same things over and over again in recovery, right? But like every time I seem to be at a different place, you know? I have the same struggles today, but they look a lot different. You know, when I was in early recovery and I had all those service commitments, I couldn't pay my rent at my recovery house. It was like $500, you know? And I was a hostess at a restaurant, and I went to my parents for the extra money, and they said, well, yeah, we'll give you the money, but why are you short on rent? Aren't you working? I was like, yeah, but like I only work sometimes because I have like all these service commitments. And I was like, oh, those don't pay my bills. So I gotta cut those down. And so I cut those down, and then I, didn't have an issue paying my rent. And now I'm like, okay, I love being of service. It's truly what keeps me connected and plugged in. But they don't pay my bills. They don't raise my kids. They're not in the relationship I'm in. So that's kind of what has to give for me right now. 30 minutes is a long time to talk. People don't afford me that opportunity very much. One thing I was thinking about is like the identity crisis struggle for me. I think in part is also because of where I was in my addiction. I was a stripper in my addiction. I degraded myself in my addiction to get drugs, and now I drive a minivan. So, like, for me, and sometimes, like, I think deep on the inside, I still feel some of that, like, that little girl. I still feel some of that teenage girl. I feel some of that Autumn that was in her disease. And I feel that some of that Autumn that is, in early recovery, and I don't know how to write checks, and I'm walking my Subarus all over the place to get supplies for my meeting. And then I'm like in a minivan all of a sudden, and I'm like talking about house projects and, taking trips to IKEA with the kids. And it's just like, it's really a trip. And I don't know how I got here other than one foot in front of the other and like one weird sane choice at a time. Sometimes insane choices that, I have to figure my way out of and everything works out. But like, the foundation is that I don't get loaded. That's part of my story is I've wanted to get loaded, probably thousands of times at this point. I don't know if there's any other addicts like that in this room, but like I think about getting loaded all the fucking time. A good day, a bad day. It's mostly the bad days, but sometimes on a good day, I'm like, damn. And I've shared about it. I've gotten like brutally honest about it and ugly about it, and yeah, it's been scary sometimes, you know. After my first son was born, he was almost a year and a half old, and I either wanted to get loaded or kill myself. I think there was a mixture of regular depression and postpartum depression. Thanks, Roger. And I was looking at my life and I was like, yeah, like logically everything's cool. Like I got a good life. I have this really beautiful child, you know, just running around me all the time. He loves me more than life itself, and I didn't want to be here anymore. And I had to seek some help, you know, from the program and from outside help, and I was able to, you know, get a different perspective and kind of change how I felt. And you know, postpartum and having kids has kind of been like my deal for the last few years, and it's not easy. It's not easy to navigate all the parts of life when you have two little beings that are relying on you. I feel isolated most of the time. I feel disconnected from my people. I feel disconnected from recovery, even though I'm still showing up, even though I'm of service, right? But like my world is just kind of consumed by these little boys, and you know, I wouldn't change that for the world, but like, I don't know. I did not know that postpartum would be this hard, you know, and I've heard some other women here talk about it, and that makes me feel like I'm not alone, and like this is okay, this is normal. And I look at other moms and I'm like, okay, they're still alive, right? And sometimes like I've thought to myself, like, I don't know how people do this clean. Like, especially after I had my second son, I was literally like, I feel like I need to use a substance to survive this. And luckily I know women that used when their children were younger. And I know that that is not the answer, right? Like I can see that that's not the answer. I am so grateful to the program of Narcotics Anonymous. I have grown up here. I have learned how to do simple things like write checks. I have learned to do difficult things like navigating having children, navigating issues in a relationship, navigating employment issues. I have learned everything I know from Narcotics Anonymous and the 12 steps and traditions. The principles are integrated into my life. I learn more about them. I do not know it all. I feel like I know very little, but I know enough that if I don't know, I will come here and I will find an answer. Yeah, I'm eternally grateful for this program. I'm going to end it on that. Thank you.